So Development Initiatives has just completed some research on looking at how we invest in ending poverty. And this piece of research is all about trying to understand the financial flows that are actually available to be directed very specifically at ending poverty by 2030. We've mapped out the complex environment of financial flows going into developing countries, as well as looking at domestic expenditure to really understand the changing mix of resources and where specifically aid can be targeted to reach the poorest. Investments to end poverty has really demonstrated that aid remains a critical resource flow. Although a small resource flow, it is one of the few resources that can be specifically targeted to where the poor are. This is a resource that allows you to think about where are the poor, where are the limited resources going in, and how can aid compensate until the country's economies grow and change and transition, and the domestic governments have more resources at hand to deal with poverty themselves as well. So if we specifically look at Ethiopia, now Ethiopia has an incredible growing economy. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. It's also seen as a Millennium Development Goals trailblazer, so it's really reaching the Millennium Goals. However, it's only able to do this because aid is one of the main resources going into the country and remains a consistent flow. So the economy is growing and changing, but yet the resources are slow to diversify, and so domestic expenditure is still very much reliant on aid flows into the country. As the country's economy grows and changes and transition, aid will change in the role that it plays there as well. And this is where donor governments really need to come in. They need to think about the role that aid is playing in a country like Ethiopia. And as the resource mix starts to change, they can also think about how they transition and move aid into a different country where it has the same ability to harness other resources into that country and allow that country to grow as well. One of the most interesting things we found was that actually the data upon which poverty numbers are based is incredibly poor and also out of date. So we're trying to make decisions on data about where the people are, but some of the survey data of poverty in countries is based on figures from 1998, 2000, 2005. Countries, the populations will have changed dramatically. People would have moved around completely. However, 2010, 2011, we're looking back 10 years, from data back from 10 years to base these decisions. This is obviously not sufficient, and we need to improve that data. And we were very surprised at the paucity of data that's available, that people base some very important decisions on some very, very weak numbers.